here's what builders care about. And I know I'm skipping all around. Salespeople care about this kind of stuff. Builders care about this, but builders care about their risk and their liability and their reputation. And then finally, their money, which is like, how do I know I have a partner that's going to save me money? Okay. So for example, if the appraisal comes in low, we don't just ask the appraisal to eat it all the way. We work creative options to do an appraisal gap. Like if they were 10% down, now we'll make them 5% down. We'll change their mortgage insurance to upfront MI. Katie's worked a lot of Toll Brothers deals where the deal came in low. Emma had one with Toll Brothers where came in really low and we saved the deal. Like having those testimonials to a builder to say, hey, just because the appraisal came in under 50 grand, we worked to get the best solution for the buyer to keep the payment the same, to keep their cash to close the same, but to structure upfront mortgage insurance paid by the seller, and the seller didn't have to take a full $50,000 reduction. So stories like that, where we are creative and we actually work on the builder's team. Like, yes, we're representing the buyer, but we are an extension of their team. Also, lead conversion. They spend a shit ton of money in advertising for people waving signs, for billboards, for newspaper ads. So if we say, look, we track every lead, we follow up with it 7 times, that's a way that you're going to protect their money and make deals work. The other thing is like talking about, like if we say no, there's literally no, it's like literally a no, there's no way, because we will do anything and everything to exhaust a possibility or situation. And if a builder knows that, again, they're used to, if they've had preferred lenders assigned by some big company, that the person's just got a handout. The reason we're doing Toll Brother business right now is because their box is really small. Like if it doesn't perfectly fit in the box or is really easy, they're like, we don't want to deal with it. And so Toll Brothers is sending us their turn down business or referral business. Okay. So, and how did we get that one? The president, we just stayed after the president. She did a sublease of our South Reno space. And so, I mean, I've been at Toll Brother, I've been after them for 10 years. Gary Mayo's, they're like president district guys. So I've stayed in front of Gary Mayo. When shit's gone wrong, I've had to get on the phone with Gary. So I've built a reputation of like, these guys will perform. And if they won't, they get on the phone, they solve the problem. This is a good mortgage company. So continuing to build your brand with the builders, our brand is really important. But so builders care about their money. They care about risk, because I'm telling you, like I just sat with John Wolf of Northern Nevada Homes, and he's like, look, we're self-funding this stuff, or we have limited financing. Like we can't just have a weak pre-approval. We can't just have like gift funds that are never verified. We can't just say like, oh, they'll save enough money, because like we're putting our own money on the line. You guys think about it. A builder, not only does it take 2 years to do the entitlements and to get the city planning approvals and to get the plot plans done and to get architecture renderings done and to get permits, then you got to go build roads and sewers and curbs and electrical. They do all of this work for years before they even break ground on a house. Okay. Then they break ground on that house and they're financing this fucker for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Right. And a lot of that is their own cash in the deal as well. So they think about risk. How am I protected with your pre-approval? When I worked with home crafters back in the day, like they had to send my pre-approval letter to their construction lender. And I had to basically interview with their construction lender at whatever bank they were working with to make sure that I was legit and our process was legit so that they would fund the construction of this house. Okay. So long story short, risk, liability, they worry about their liability. So like if we aren't clear with disclosures, if we're not clear upfront with what the thing is, they really worry about reputational risk, because did you guys know in the state of Nevada, builders are on the hook for 10 years after a house closes. Okay. The biggest problem for them is class action lawsuits. So these attorneys come to a builder, they walk around and go, hey, do you have any cracks in your drywall? Do you have any loose nails? Do you have any like chip paint? Well, join me and all your neighbors and we'll go file a class action lawsuit against these builders. And they have like 10 years to do it, right? So if buyers are happy through the process with all parties, and we limit their liability, it makes a huge difference for builders post-closing on their customer service, their reputation, their warranty issues, all that stuff. So this is how builders think, and you've got to be direct and bold with them. Okay. They are high D's. They are not salespeople. They're not I's. Realtors drive them nuts most of the time. Okay. So you got to walk that balance of like knowing that you're going to love on the agents and drive agents to their communities if they want you to, but also that you are, that you understand their business, their risk, their liability, their financial investment in their business and everything else. Okay. Why do realtors drive them nuts? Because most realtors don't understand new construction. They don't understand the process of how it works or how to sell it. They don't understand that a house built today to today's energy codes are so much more efficient and better than a house that was built 20 years ago. And that there's real intrinsic value into a house that's built today with today's energy codes, right? From a framing and insulation and safety perspective and everything else. Okay. So agents don't sell well. The other thing is agents a lot of times don't bring their client through the door. Okay. The builder procured the client through their advertising, their sign writers, their sign movers, and they spend a lot of money for that. And then an agent comes back second or third meeting and says, oh, I want to get paid on this client. Right. And builders are like, dude, you weren't here. You didn't bring the client through the door. And then finally, a lot of these builders that right now, especially, they've thinned their margins. Like if they make 10% profit on a house, that's good. So if they sell a $500,000 house, they make 50 grand, great. When there was a lot of gravy in there, maybe they made 20% profit margin. But I'm telling you, that's for a minute, because all the while the costs are going up, right? So sales prices raised, but then costs are going up. So they have a higher cost of lumber, higher cost of subcontractors. They don't have enough subcontractors to get their jobs done. Like they go through immense challenges to build and deliver a house to a happy customer. And so as a loan officer, you've got to understand and think like a builder and understand what they're going through in order to stand out differently versus just an LO that's like, I have a 500 credit score. I'm really good at jumbo. Like, okay, great. Like that's the minimum. You've got to be good at that stuff to even be in this conversation. What you've got to be really good at is like putting yourself in their shoes and what their life is about. Okay. So, I think I've just nailed it in terms of what builders think and what sales agents think. And sometimes I like going directly to the owner of the company, like the big decision maker, and figuring out what matters to them. One time I've done a lot of business for home crafters over the years. In fact, that's why we have an Elko branch, is because home crafters went and built a project in Winnemucca, and they wanted me to do the loans on Winnemucca for a new mine out there. And the mine was actually giving their employees down payment assistance to attract people to move to Winnemucca because they could not get enough bodies to work at this mine. And so Home Crafters was building these houses. I didn't want to drive to Winnemucca. Andy knew Annette Hunt and up in Elko. So that's how I opened the branch there 12 years ago. So I've done several subdivisions. They go to open Pinecrest up in Collin Ranch. Okay. They're now doing like 800 to $1 million. And I sit down with Troy to talk about being their preferred lender. They love me. I love them. I killed it for them. And I said, so Troy, why do you want a preferred lender on this project? And he's like, well, I guess I really don't care. I was like, okay, good to know. Right. Because if they are like, well, I need somebody to cover my ass, I'm sick of deals closing late, because a deal closing late to a builder, guys, costs them real money every day, right? Real money, like 250, 500, 750 bucks a day. And depending on how their financing is structured, a lot of them pay interest on a whole phase. So like Shannon, you're wanting to do condos. If they do a building and that building has 6 condos in it, they're paying interest on that entire building until the entire building is closed and funded and done. So if 3 units are outstanding or 1 is delayed and closing late, they're paying interest on 6 units, not just 1, right? So many builders are like, I'm sick of shit closing late. I'm sick of being with lenders that don't understand the process. Like a lot of these stupid lenders like Navy Fed, they won't order the appraisal until they have a certificate of occupancy. right? Which is like right when you're ready to move in. That's the stupidest thing you've ever heard, right? But a lot of these lenders hate that. So if they've had some pain with outside lenders, then those are the things. And they're like, we go, well, no, a lot of times we're funding the loan the minute the C of O arrives, or we've even funded the loan with the C of O as a to follow, meaning we know, God, we know the city of Sparks is their inspector is slow. He's going to be there at 2:00. We're going to get the C of O at 3:30. So we'll wire those funds because we're guild and we're local and we have great funding. And then we will just make the title company hold recording until we get the C of O, and then we'll record it. So like literally we're recording minutes after receiving a C of O. Those are the kinds of things that we've had with guild that you don't get when you're working with a big lender that doesn't understand builder business. A lot of loan officers also don't understand the process of upgrades, right? So if you get a base price of 675, a loan officer will approve somebody for 675 at today's interest rate. And they are not thinking ahead that, oh, well, it's going to take 6 months to build this house. And the average buyer puts $50,000 in upgrades. So this house is going to really be 725 closing in 6 months from today. Where should I approve that buyer? So then people either over upgrade and now you're screwed, right? Or they over upgrade and the house doesn't appraise and that we haven't thought about that. Or the rates move a half point and we haven't thought about that, right? So again, this goes back to risk and liability for that builder of closing accurately and closing on time. And builder business, I always tell people, is like 3 times as hard, okay? Because you have to underwrite those people usually 3 different times. You got to underwrite them right at contract. Okay. Right when you get the I don't care, it's closing for 6 months. You got to underwrite them right at contract because you're protecting the builder's ass because they're going way on the line. Then you've got to stay in contact with these clients for 6 or 8 or 9 months or however long. And then you've got to re-underwrite them, whatever, 60 days out. You also have to know about appraisal timelines. For a while, there was taking a long time to get appraisals. So we're having to order appraisals 60 days out before they even have cabinets. And then the appraisal goes back again to do the final inspection, like the day of closing or the day before, because a lot of times they're finishing the house and closing it the same day because they want it done. So a lot of loan officers, just so you guys know, don't know builder business and that process. So they're not following up. Oh, and buyers will want to lock their loan, right? They'll go, can I lock? Can I lock? Can I lock? Well, on a contract, if builders are smart, they'll say, this deal is subject to close between January and March of 2024. Well, a lot of loan officers, if they're not thinking, they'll just lock that loan with a lock expiration of January 15th. Okay. So you cannot let the buyer dictate how it's going to go because you can't control if the garage door is on back order from China and you don't have a garage door, or, the drywallers or stucco guys are now 3 weeks behind, or we get 42 feet of snow and you guys know what happened this winter, right? And you've got your job sites are all wet and you can't do what you need to do. So you have to be in close communication with that builder because you'll get pressure from your buyer. I want to lock. And then you can't, you have to be like, what is the window? What is the buffer? So generally speaking, when they have cabinets installed, they're usually about 40 days out. Okay. And a builder will kind of know that over time. If they're building a new product they've never built before, like they're building a condo project and they haven't built this exact condo project, there's a lot of shit for them to work out in the field in construction, the first building or two. Once they've done it, they know, right? They've got it down. But when you guys look at these plans, if you've ever built a house or seen it, like when I built my house, there was no M&P drawings. There was no mechanical and electrical. Like the architect just failed to put that in there. So on site, we're having to figure out where are we going to put the mechanical equipment and how are we going to build ducts in and what faucets, is that what it's called? Anyway, how are we going to build those in? So that's what they're working on a lot when they're doing new projects and new products. Okay. Other frustrations or annoyances. Yeah. Like you've always got to be on the side of the builder. right? So the client might come and bitch about the builder. You always have to say, you have to be empathetic to the buyer, but the builder's your client, right? Always. Like you have to have the builder's back. So you have to always have the back of your agents and the builder, and you got to play that middle person. Does that make sense? Because then you'll have the agents that start bitching to you about the builder, about their boss, right? Like the builder's making me do this and blah, 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 blah. And you have to be like, oh man. And then over here, the builder's bitching about their sales agent because they're not doing the work or whatever. And you just have to be Switzerland in all those situations. Okay. Then their needs. Okay. So what do builders need? Remember, there's sales, operation, and finance. Every business is always having a problem. So you have to figure out what problem they're in. Right now, a lot of builders are having a sales problem. They're not getting enough traffic. So what can you do as a preferred lender to help them get more traffic? Can you promote their project to realtors? Can you promote their standing inventory to all your pre-approvals? Can you stand on the side of the road with a sign? I mean, what can you do? Can you host an open house or a lunch and learn in their models? Can you make a social media video? Just can you make a weekend, like a TCA saying, hey, here's the builder's incentive. Here's what it is. Can you post that on social media that they can post? So what are some things you can do to help them drive sales? Okay. Operationally, like when I met with John Wolf and Rob Fitzgerald of Northern Nevada Homes the other day, they were like, yeah, we actually have sold 35 houses in the first quarter. We're coming along, but operationally, now they have to focus on getting them built and close on time and dealing with all that stuff. And their pain was like, just don't give me a shit pre-approval. Like, Shayla, if you will validate your people's approvals at Guild, we'll let them stay with Guild because we like Guild, we trust you, blah, blah, blah. So that's all they cared about. But other people over here, they're worried about sales and conversion, right? Then the other process is, finance is like protecting their money, like we talked about already earlier. So when I asked Troy Means, hey, why do you want a preferred lender? He's like, I guess I don't really care. On that specific project, he figured it's in Collin Ranch. It's a high-end development. There's going to be a lot of people from California that have cash. This is not going to be people's first rodeo. They're going to be well qualified. I guess I don't really care. Okay. Now on his last project, his bank needed like my underwritten letter to get financing to get vertical construction money. So he really needed me. So the ball moves constantly is the point. What they need is going to change based on the environment, the market, their financing terms, their cash position, the whole deal. And you just got to stay engaged with them and say, look, this is a partnership. Like, I want to be an extension of your team. It's like you're hiring me to be on your team, and I earn my way by doing the business for you. Okay. The best arrangements are ones where there is a preferred lender incentive. Okay. So this I've had to work with, because otherwise, buyers are like, well, what's in it for me? Why do I have to do it? They cannot dictate who you use. Okay. That's against the law. You cannot say you have to use this person, but they can say you must get pre-approved by the preferred lender. Okay. And the reason why is because they need to protect their butt. They can't just take some letter for face value that somebody printed off the internet, or there's some inexperienced LO across town that doesn't know what the hell they're doing. So as a preferred lender, you're going to get the opportunity to pre-approve every single person. And if they don't require that, then you're really not a preferred lender at all, right? But they should. It's a lot of work for us to do it, but it also gets us in front of the buyers when they allow us to do it. Does that make sense? So then you just start in the gossip mill and trying to figure stuff out, and then figure out how you weasel your way in there, right? But if you guys drive around and you see dirt moving, and you try to figure out who's doing this dirt, is it the developer stage? Is it a builder's already on there? The way land is developed, some people will buy land, they'll entitle it, they'll do all this stuff, and then they'll sell it to a builder. And then sometimes you get a random small builder, like a chiropractor who's bought 40 lots because now they think they're going to buy houses, they're going to build houses, right? So then that chiropractor actually hires, Katie, have you, by the way, chased down the new townhomes for that Desert Wind is fee building?
Ryder's building new townhomes, but which one? Oh, the ones with Barbie and Katie.
Yeah.
No, I talked to Katie about it at the rodeo though, 2 nights ago, and I told her I'd call her once the rodeo is over and we talk more about it.
Okay, call Barbie.
Call Barbie, okay?
So like Desert Wind, for example, they're doing what's called a fee build. So they're not the developer. They're not even the owner. They're just being hired to fee build for this dude, Ryan at Aspen Earthworks. Katie, that's the backstory on it. So they started construction on that project. Then Ryan lost his partner. They had financial issues, so they stopped it. And Ryan's had to get his shit in order, and now they're back at it. And I don't know. So like Ryan is the owner, so he hired Desert Wind to fee build it. And sometimes they'll hire their own sales team. So they'll hire a random agent, or they'll go to Dixon Realty and say, Dixon, can you run it? Like that Home Crafters, they just go to Nancy Fennell at Dixon and say, we want you to manage the sales. So then they bring in a sales agent from Dixon, like Larissa Osborne, who has experience. And then they brought in their JV Synergy to do the loans. Like that's how that deal went down. However, if I wanted to fight for that Home Crafters deal and call in a ranch and say, I want to be your preferred lender, Troy, I know you don't think you need one, but I want it. I would have then just needed to follow up with Larissa and I would have earned that business. But when he told me, I don't really care, I don't really need a preferred lender, I was like, I'm not spending my time on this because it's a lot of work. And I told him right in that meeting, I'm glad you told me this because every builder's different in what their needs are. And some I'm literally driving traffic and doing open houses and I'm pre-approving everybody on the pre-approval interest list. And I'm managing that list and updating people. And we're going to the releases every, when they have a lot release on the weekends and they're doing some sort of raffle or I mean, honestly, it's every builder, what they need is different. And as the market changes, like at one point, Katie had 75 pre-approvals for Shadow Ridge, and there's only like 5 houses for sale. So she had to do all these pre-approvals and maintain all these damn people, knowing that most of them are not going to get a house. The hope is hopefully they stay with you if they leave and buy somewhere else. Right. But there was a lot of leakage where we pre-approved a shitload of people and never converted them on the houses that they bought. Our bad because we were probably just too busy. But anyway, then the escrow management part of it, guys, we can run reports out of Salesforce. You can run reports on their leads and show them how many times you're following up on all their leads and show them their leads. You can run a report on the escrows to show them exactly where they're at on their escrows. Like DR Horton, if you ever do a DR Horton deal, they have these regular escrow calls like every Thursday, and they need you to fill out a sheet with all the key pertinent details so that sales agent is ready for those pipeline meetings, right? So understanding what the agents need and what their responsibilities are up to their boss and how we make them look good is important because they hate outside lenders because they've got to go chase us down for details. So don't be that loan officer that you have to be chased. Basically, if you say, look, I do a Tuesday update every single Tuesday, you send me the fields of your spreadsheet that you need the data on. I'll send it to you every single Tuesday, even if this is a 6-month build, and I'll stay in contact with the buyers every other week, whatever your wow process is. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So we've talked about, you're going to either chase the sales agent, chase the owner, chase the subcontractors to get to the owner, chase the development company to find out who the builders are to get in front of the builders. Then you're going to have a meeting with them and you're going to identify why they want a preferred lender, where they're at with money, risk, and liability, and what you can do to help them. Okay. Who's their buyer profile? Who's the demographic? What products? How long do they need to build? How many lots? You got to ask all those questions. So, because if their buyer profile is, a $400,000 buyer versus $1 million buyer, you're talking about different conversations and different products. Shannon's got a potential condo project, new build condos. So we have a third party. We've got the most premier condo specialist in the world. Her name is Diana. I'm going to screw it up right now. I want to say Diana Provost, but that is not her name. That is another person. Anyway, is her name Diane? Katie, what's her name? I will look her up. Anyway, she has approved over 25,000 condo units and works with the biggest builders in the country. She'll get the entire project Fannie approved or FHA approved or VA approved. depending on the buyer profile. Okay. So we've worked with her for Genuine when they did the new build condos down in South Reno and Demonte Ranch, and now they're doing them in Carson. And now that prices have gone up, they're not really going through FHA approval on every phase because they're not seeing those buyer profiles. But on the Fannie condo approvals, we can do what's called a CPM, which is condo project approval, or CPM, condo project management, where we can run kind of like an AUS to do the condo approvals. So when we have that call with them, we can say, look, we're really good at condos. Most of the stuff we do right here in house. If you want to get VA approved or FHA approved, we bring in our preferred partner, who's the best in the country, and you get her on a call and she wows the shit out of them. She's really, really good. Okay. So let me talk about two other quick things. Okay. So we have an expanded builder services division that is a third-party company called Builders Capital. Okay. So I'm going to send you guys a link. This is another way to say something interesting to get a meeting. They basically do hard money lending for builders. And I'll give you guys this YouTube link in the chat. I did a quick call with Carrie Travers, who used to work at Builders Capital and now works with Guild in our builder division. And so we now have products like, Sean, what you always wanted, that we can do vertical construction. We can do an all-in-one where they do the land, the entitlements, the development, the vertical. We could do a bridge loan. So if a builder still has like 3 inventory units, but they want to cash out of it to put that money into another development, they can do that. Builders Capital is built by builders, and the CEO of Builders Capital is like, 9 years there, was a builder. So they're really all about creating velocity and flexibility for builders. Their terms are, 9 to 12% interest rates. But what I found in meeting with other builders and talking about how they capitalize their projects, some of them are doing private money. They're raising money from family offices. They're paying a couple points on the sales price. I mean, you'd be shocked how builders are having to capitalize their construction. And banks are actually getting a lot tighter and harder. So pay to watch that video if you want to learn about Builders Capital, because you could, like, I went and approached John Wolf, who we used to do his business a long time ago, to say, hey, we've got a new expanded builder services division, and we actually are providing funding as a broker alliance to builders for all-in-one, for development, for all that stuff. And he was like, cool, I'll check it out. And then in addition, they have these other products called BIM Quote and Custom Home AI. And Shannon, you might love Custom Home AI because it's like got 450 fully architected and engineered plans that you could go on and start playing with. And it has full takeoffs down to the nails and the studs and the sticks of what's in these houses. And you can make changes and say, well, what if I move the front door? Or what if I did this kind of chandelier, or blah, blah, blah. And it prices all of this stuff out. So Builders Capital invested in these 2 technology companies to basically provide more than just financing to builders. Their thought being that if they could save them money on design and engineering, in addition to 3D renderings, they have something called BIM Quote, which will do, and it explains what the hell it is. I mean, I've presented it now to 4 different builders. They were all in a position where they didn't need the capital now, but that's a fun loan, guys. If you get to refer that one out and you do a $14 million loan for a builder, that's fun. I mean, my whole career, we're just talking about how we can help them perfect the process from sales and operations to delivery with a retail buyer. Okay. And a key thing that you want to have is a preferred lender addendum. That's what I was trying to get from my documents, but my computer keeps giving me errors. So Katie probably has that too and can put that in the chat. Katie, can you put a sample in there?
Yeah, I'll try and find one.
All right. Well, I can't, that's so annoying. I can't get my documents to open. So the forward commitment, Sean, when it comes over, is going to look like this. Okay. So what this does is it shows you that, let's say in Elko, they've got 9 houses left and the average loan size is, $400,000. So, and maybe you can capture like 6 of them, 6 sales in the next 90 days. So let's just say they do a $2.5 million commitment. Okay. So they would pay 3/8 of a point up front because that's the upfront lock fee for the 90 days. It's a commitment fee. Then if they want to, they could pay points to buy down that rate. Okay. So Nikki Salter yesterday was talking about how she had landed a builder with 40 units, townhomes, and they offered a 5% interest rate. This is how they did it. Because a builder could come in and say, I'm going to pay 8 points to buy down the rate. And because it's not on an individual loan basis, it doesn't go against your seller contributions. Okay. So you know how on an investor, they can only have a max 2% seller credit. Well, if you do a forward lock and you buy a chunk of money and it has nothing to do with the loan terms, now they can advertise a rate. So that's the benefit here, right? So they might do no buy down, Sean. They might just do this 90-day lock at 2.5 million. And then when they give the incentive, they actually do an addendum and pay the 4 points just as they would normally, right? Or so that's kind of how that goes. But when we first did this with Genuine, they paid 4 points up front. And then if it's not used, we give them 80% of it refunded, within the 90 days. So basically like a 5 1/4 right now is costing 6 1/8. Okay. This is priced on a 60-day lock. So if a builder's willing to pay 4 points, and like you were going to do this on reduced comp, Sean, and you kicked in another point, you could take 5 points off at a 5 1/4, right? So before LLPAs, you would be at 6.125 minus, I really don't know. I've got issues in my computer. You would be at, the borrower would only pay 1 1/8 points to get a 5 1/4. So when you do this, they lock this rate sheet, and then you could either do conventional VA, FHA, because you're locking in today's rate sheet for 90 days. Okay. But then what builders like to do is say, well, I want to advertise a 5 1/4 interest rate on these inventory houses. Well, since they've locked in this money, we've done a forward lock. Now we could sell houses into that lock. Okay. Now, just because you advertise a 5 1/4 doesn't mean that the borrower could come in and actually need help with closing costs, and you give them a 6%. And now that 4 points is like rebate that can go towards their closing costs, right? Because you're locking in that rate. So Sean, what you've got to figure out, like I was telling you, is the LLPAs. So like a 5 1/4, if they pay 4 points and you pay a point, you're at 1 1/8. If they did a 20% down 740, you've got a 7/8 of a LLPA, your borrower's paying 2 points. I think that's probably okay, because if you look online, everybody's advertising rates that have 2 points generally. But I wouldn't set up something with advertising where borrower's going to likely pay more than 2 points, right? So if I were to do that, I would say this rate is based on this APR with a 760 FICO and 25% down. That way you're covering your ass, right? And then when somebody comes in, they've got a 680 and 10% down, you go, look, this rate is locked here. The builder's paying 4 points. I'm paying a point. So you get 5 points discount on this rate sheet. You can pick whatever rate you want. Okay. And that's how you then sell the forward lock to the customer at the end of the day. But from a builder's perspective, it allows them to choose a rate and lock it. You guys, when you work with a preferred builder, ideally, if there's about a $4,000 incentive, you get a really high capture, just so you know. That's kind of like the magic number. If you're doing an $800,000 house, you might have to have a bigger incentive. But if you look at DR Horton and you look at Lennar, traditionally they give $4,000 to $5,000 to the buyer, and you get a really high capture rate. It's hard for us on retail to compete with it. That's how it works, right? So when I set up my relationships, I would say, builder to pay $3,000, Gil to pay $1,000. And that's how we give a $4,000 incentive. Okay. If they don't want to kick in money because they dropped their price so much or the market's screaming and they don't want to do that, then I'll have them change the escrow splits. So instead of splitting escrow 50-50 and title where the buyer pays the lender's policy and the seller pays the owner's policy, we will say, if you use a preferred lender, we'll split these. If you don't, the buyer has to pay 100% of everything. So it's kind of like a disincentive to use an outside lender. Okay. It saves the builder money and it costs the borrowers more. In an ideal world, I like having a lower earnest money deposit, better title fee splits, and a seller credit to use the preferred lender. Like that's the triple win. If
And
you can get
lower
title
upgrade-
fees and earnest money, what else?
Lower upgrade deposits, right?
Lower up, and that's another one, lower upgrade deposits. So if they require like 50% of all upgrades to be paid in deposit, they'll say, well, if you use Guild, we'll only take 25% of upgrades. Or, with Home Crafters, it used to be 100% of upgrades. So if you put 30,000 upgrades, you're going to cough over $30,000 in the escrow. But if you work with Shayla at Guild, we'll only make you put 50% of the upgrade deposits. And their theory behind that is that I've got their ass covered by doing a good, strong pre-approval. And they're trying to find an incentive that actually doesn't cost them any money, but that really incentivize the borrower to work with us because they trust us and they want us to get it done.